Donald Trump back in the race for president. Australian wage growth picks up and Deliveroo pulls out of Australia. It's Thursday, the 17th of November, 2022. Welcome to Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson and good morning, Adam Lang.
Good morning, Michael.
Now, Adam, we won't waste too much time today. We've got a lot to get through, but I just need to ask you very, very quickly. Yesterday afternoon, did you see the launch of the Artemis mission?
Oh, God, yeah. I had to watch it live. It was amazing.
I'm still kind of lost for words because I just thought that was one of the most extraordinary things that I've seen. Just the amount of work, the engineering that's gone into it, and then just the quality of the pictures as you saw this rocket taking off to head to the moon. It's going to go to the moon, around the moon, and it's part of kind of a stepping stone mission, really, that they testing a bunch of things that will then help kind of people get back to the moon and then eventually, hopefully one day as well, to Mars. So it's a pretty extraordinary thing. And just to see it blasting off after previous attempts had to be called off because of the weather, I just loved it. I'm a bit of a space junkie, but I think anyone would have enjoyed that.
Yeah, go Artemis.
Yes, indeed. Well said. All right. Now, today's interview, Adam, is with Catherine Robson, the chair of Scale Investors. This is a fascinating chat, really, about the startup scene and really some significant inequality that's going on.
Yeah, Michael, and Catherine, as the chair of Scale Investors, has some great perspective on the current startup landscape, as well as the perspective on what they're doing to improve the outlook for women founders.
Yeah, it's a really good chat. It's coming up a little bit later on, so it's definitely worth sticking around for. The main story this morning, though, Adam, it's been a massive few days in global politics. We've got, of course, the G20 summit going on at the moment, and we saw the meeting about a day and a half ago now between Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Chinese President Xi Jinping. At the same time, yesterday we saw a missile strike hitting NATO member Poland, and then to top it all off, Donald Trump has confirmed a 2024 presidential bid. We'll start with the missile strike that killed 2 people in Poland near its border with Ukraine. It was an incident that really risked inflaming global tensions, and it also rattled financial markets. It had everyone on edge because Poland is a member of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is, of course, a military agreement between 30 European and North American countries to defend each other against attacks by third parties. Poland blamed Russian forces for firing the rockets, although Moscow denied it was responsible. And if that had been confirmed, it would have been the first time in the war that Russian weapons have been fired at a NATO country. So when the news first kind of came through yesterday, there was significant concerns that this was going to be a major escalation.
That's right, Michael. It was tense. Now, it's important to note that President Joe Biden said it is unlikely the missiles were fired from Russia. That comment alone should prevent the worst of the fallout over the incident and help to calm nervous financial markets. Initial investigations suggest that the missile actually was fired by Ukrainian forces, hoping to hit an incoming Russian missile. Russia had fired up to 100 missiles on Ukraine, the largest attack on civilian infrastructure since the start of the invasion.
And Adam, that all comes as the G20 works to finalise a communique that will likely say that most of its members condemn the war in Ukraine. And the phrasing appears designed to give China and India a way out of an outright condemnation of Russia. It also says there are, quote, other views on the situation in Ukraine, clearly referring to Russia. Now, that country isn't backing down. It's openly defying calls to end the war, and its representative at the G20 even pulled stumps and abruptly left a day early.
And Michael, while this was all going on, Donald Trump was holding a primetime event from his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Trump confirmed a presidential bid for 2024 in a rambling, hour-long speech filled with nationalist rhetoric and claims the country is in a horrible state.
Now, he covered an awful lot of ground in that speech. He said he wants to save the United States from its, quote, staggering decline under the Democrats. He told his supporters that he was a victim of the FBI and said he would dismantle the deep state, which seems to be a bit of a call out to some of the internet kind of conspiracy theorists that seem to have had a lot to say in recent years.
Michael, his speech covered all the old hits: migrants, porous borders, drug running, Islamic terrorism, and the China virus. He even claimed many people believed China played a very active role in his loss of the 2020 election. President Joe Biden wasted no time going on the attack, posting a tweet that simply said, "Donald Trump failed America."
Indeed. And attached to that tweet, there was a video that had really a collection of some of the former president's probably more controversial moments and statements. And it just makes me think that maybe President Biden has just been waiting for this to happen with this video ready to go.
He might have had something in his pocket ready to go.
I suspect he might have. It's going to be a very interesting couple of years watching this one play out. Turning to markets now, Adam, the S&P ASX 200 fell slightly yesterday, dropping 0.3% to 7,122 points. Big movers included plumbing and bathroom supplies company Reece, which dropped 2.9%. QBE Insurance fell 2.8%. Whitehaven Coal added nearly 6%, while Nufarm added nearly 9%. More about that one later. On commodity markets, the oil price fell slightly to $86 a barrel. The Aussie dollar is buying 67.4 US cents. Bitcoin is trading at around 17,000 US dollars. The fallout is still ongoing from the collapse of FTX. We will be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Adam, it's a big week for the economy. Wages growth has picked up, according to Australian Bureau of Statistics data. Average private sector pay rises hit 4.3% in the September quarter, leaving annual wages growing at the fastest pace in a decade. Half of workers outside of the government received a pay rise. The private sector pay rises mean overall wage growth has added 1% over the quarter to 3.1% year on year.
That's right, Michael, and that number is ahead of expectations and shows the strength of the economy and the tightness of the labour market. Of course, with inflation running at more than 7%, real wages are still falling.
Yes, indeed. Now, this is an interesting one, Adam. Food delivery service Deliveroo Australia has gone into administration and is pulling out of the local market. The company, which is known for its large network of delivery riders, I think we've all seen them out on the streets at various times, announced late yesterday that the local arm of the UK-based company has ceased operations, meaning that customers can no longer place orders via its app for delivery. Deliveroo has cited a tough trading environment with consumers spending less as the cost of living rises.
Yeah, Michael, this is sad. The company has appointed Cordamenta as administrators, saying it can't maintain its position in the market without a disproportionate level of investment, which would have highly uncertain returns. Deliveroo started here in 2015, growing its network to include more than 12,000 partner restaurants, 15,000 riders, and 120 staff. But in recent years, Uber Eats has dominated the market, and rivals Menulog and DoorDash have also overtaken Deliveroo, pushing it into fourth place. So far this year, Deliveroo has also pulled out of the Netherlands and Spain.
Adam, Medibank chairman Mike Wilkins has defended the insurer's conduct during the recent cyber attack that compromised 10 million people's private health data. Mr. Wilkins addressed shareholders at the company's annual general meeting and said that Medibank was committed to doing the right thing from the outset.
Yes, Chairman Mike Wilkins said, "We believe our processes were robust, although clearly not robust enough." Medibank also reaffirmed its intention not to pay a US $10 million ransom demand. CEO David Koskar told shareholders that there's no doubt rejecting the ransom demand was the right thing to do.
Adam, at least one person has died in the New South Wales floods crisis. Residents in parts of the New South Wales Central West are returning to their homes to assess the damage, and there is an extraordinary amount of damage done. In other parts of the state, the water levels are still rising. Clearly, the crisis is not over yet.
That's right, Michael, and there are other complications as well. Mosquito populations have exploded to plague proportions in sections of the Central West, and the now familiar impact of flooding on food prices is already being felt. Cherry producers around Orange are warning of a spike in the cost of the fruit as we approach Christmas.
Adam, GrainCorp has declared a special dividend of 16 cents a share on the back of last year's big harvest, despite harvest delays caused by heavy rain. Now, GrainCorp exports grain, oilseed and vegetable oils and has been at full capacity amid pretty significantly high global demand. It reported a net profit of $380 million for the year ended September 30, up from $139 million last year.
So more than doubled profit, and despite the special dividend, shares fell on fears that the poor weather in parts of the East Coast will affect yield and crop quality. There's also some concern of port disruption because of the dispute we mentioned between tugboat operator Svitzer and its unions. Svitzer will be in the Fair Work Commission today, and Workplace Relations Minister Tony Burke has asked the tugboat operator to hold off on locking out its workers, saying he was devastated at the way the dispute has developed.
Well, it's also been developing over 3 years now, hasn't it? It's a very long, drawn-out negotiation.
It's incredible that this is a pre-COVID dispute that's still going.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. Now, staying in agriculture, Nufarm, the farm chemical supplier, has posted a big jump in profits for the year to September 30. Net profit rose 65% to $107 million, sending its shares strongly higher.
Michael, Nufarm has called on the federal government to do more to encourage local agriculture-related manufacturing, the same way it is encouraging onshoring of battery mineral supply chains. Nufarm Managing Director Greg Hunt said chemical prices were finally falling after supply disruptions from China's zero COVID policies. He said the price of glyphosate, the most commonly used farm chemical in Australia, had fallen 30%. Now, Michael, I've checked the internet, and glyphosate is not fit for your home lawn care regime. As a non-selective herbicide, glyphosate would kill the weeds and your grass.
Look, Adam, thank you very much for the lawn advice, but I still think glyphosate has a purpose. Have you ever kind of gone out and actually kind of painted it onto the leaves of some things that are really hard to get rid of?
And not yet, Michael.
It is, but I mean, you've got to wear a lot of kind of gloves and a mask and everything like that because it's pretty kind of powerful stuff. But
Do you have your own hazmat suit, Michael?
No, but I would love one.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be spectacular?
Pictures, please.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be putting that on our Fear and Greed Instagram, I can tell you what. Now, poker machine maker Aristocrat Leisure has posted a 16% increase in full-year profit to just under $950 million. Aristocrat is the poker machine maker founded by Len Ainsworth back in 1953. It has grown into one of the world's largest gambling machine companies and sells its products to casinos and pubs and clubs right across the world.
Michael, Aristocrat these days is also a mobile phone games publisher. Essentially, it makes poker machine and casino apps that run on your phone. You can't win money in them, but people still do pay to play, and the games division posted a revenue of $1.8 billion for the year to September and boasts 5.5 million daily active users.
And just a quick one, Adam, the International Monetary Fund says there is only a narrow path for Australia to avoid recession next year, but still says that higher interest rates and fiscal discipline are needed. The IMF forecasts Australia's economic growth to slow from 3.7% this year to just 1.7% in 2023-24. And it said persistent inflation or a faster than expected decline in house prices could push the economy off course into recession.
Michael, the IMF also said some things that were music to my ears. They reiterated calls to overhaul Australia's tax system. It wants the government to reduce direct taxes like income tax and rely more on indirect taxes like the GST. It has also backed the controversial Stage 3 income tax and would like to see the government better address bracket creep. How good is that?
Adam, Sean Aylmer has been away for a week and a half, and he is renowned for using this podcast to push his own agenda in terms of trying to closely examine the availability of builders to help with his home renovations. He also complains frequently about the Aussie dollar because of his trip to the United States. It has taken you a week and a half to fully replace Sean Aylmer and start using fear and greed to push your own agenda, which is now calling for tax reform.
Michael, I'm not just advocating tax reform for me. I think, as you know, it's good for the whole country.
Are you trying to say that you are, in fact, a man of the people?
No, that is your role.
That's right. I was testing you there. All right, moving on to overseas news. And the founder of collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, has spent the past few days calling around in search of commitments from investors to plug an $8 billion shortfall and repay FTX customers. FTX owes more than 1 million people money after lending billions of dollars of customer assets to fund risky bets by its affiliated trading firm Alameda Research.
Now, Michael, I would call this a courageous move by Sam Bankman-Fried. He's down $8 billion and he's calling out for some more cash. FTX has only raised US $1.9 billion of equity in its entire existence, so an $8 billion US dollar raising would be an enormous ask.
Very optimistic one, I think.
Yes. At this stage, I think that's right. Estimates are that 30,000 Australians, unfortunately, are among the 1 million people looking to recoup their losses from FTX.
This is an interesting one, Adam. Walmart in the United States says sales rose 8.2% in the October quarter from a year earlier, which is a stronger than expected report showing that shoppers in America are still spending despite rising food prices. Walmart says sales of groceries, store brands and seasonal items were all strong, but it's pretty cautious on the outlook for the US consumer and is working to lower prices.
Walmart is America's largest retailer by revenue, and its sales report is therefore a good marker of how well American households are doing. Home Depot also posted steady sales growth of 4.3%, and we'll hear from the other large retail chains in the next few days. That all comes ahead of the crucial Black Friday sales on Friday, 25 November.
How about this, Adam? The London Stock Exchange is no longer the most valuable stock market in Europe. The weak pound and fears of recession next year mean it's been overtaken by Paris for the first time since records began in 2003.
This is significant, Michael. Britain's shares are collectively worth around US 2.81 trillion, while now France's shares are worth US 2.82 trillion. It's a big reversal for London, which was worth US 1.4 trillion more than Paris as recently as 2016, roughly the time that Brexit started getting on the agenda. And luxury retailer LVMH, its growth is one of the big reasons why the French market has grown.
Adam, finally, I've been waiting for this story. I'm very excited about this. I don't know why. Steve Jobs, Apple founder, was never really much of a fashion icon. He wore the same black turtleneck and black jeans and sneakers every day. But something that you might not have known is that he was also a big fan of Birkenstocks, the sandals. I'm sure you'd have a few pairs. Do you have a pair?
I do. More than one, actually.
Do you? Scandalous. This is fantastic.
I make them last a long time.
I'm sure you do. We have discussed previously on other episodes about your love of indoor runners, which are basically pristine white runners that are only ever worn indoors. If they go outside your house, they are soiled forever and are not allowed to be worn back inside. But anyway, back to the Birkenstocks. I didn't know you owned them, and that's really good to know. Steve Jobs had Birkenstocks, and an undisclosed buyer has bought a well-worn pair of his brown suede sandals for $218,750 US. Not surprisingly, it is being described as the highest price ever paid for a pair of sandals at auction. That's a fairly niche category, isn't it?
It is, but this is a special pair of Birkenstocks. Steve Jobs wore the two-strap Arizona Birk sandals when he hatched the beginnings of Apple Computer in his Los Altos garage in 1976. Birkenstocks have become something of a fashion icon over the years. The company began in Germany in 1774 before becoming associated with the hippie movement in America in the 1960s. They rose to cult status after being worn in the 90s by supermodel Kate Moss as a teenager, and apparently she also wore Arizona Birks, the same type of sandals as Steve Jobs.
I just can't put the hippie movement, Kate Moss, and Adam Lang together. Birkenstocks, uniting all three of you, and I just can't quite get that to sit right in my head.
I think I'd have to be on the hippie fringe.
Yes, far, far on the fringe.
Outlier.
Yeah, you're one of those ones that's shaking your fist at those damn hippies. All right. Up next, Adam, is the Fear and Greed Daily interview with Catherine Robson, the chair of Scale Investors.
Yeah, Michael, we know that women are still very heavily underrepresented in senior roles and on boards of Australian companies, but apparently just 3% of venture capital money goes to female founders. That is really concerning. Scale Investors is an angel syndicate network investing in women-led Australian startups. And Catherine Robson has great perspective on the current landscape and, again, what they're doing to improve the outlook for women founders.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 17th of November, 2022. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget to check out the new episode of our other podcast, How Do They Afford That? All about making your money work a little bit harder for you. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.